The summer blockbuster. Easily my favorite part of being a movie fan. There's nothing quite like walking into the theater with an icy and a dream on a hot summer day, ready to see a regular action thrill ride to remind you why you love movies. When I was growing up, I felt like I was a bit spoiled with the types of big summer movies coming out. Stuff like Pirates of the Caribbean or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies. Every movie was packed full of practical effects, transformative environments, and these bombastic scores. The blockbuster was something special. It was like an event. Nowadays, blockbusters are more common and more standardized. And I'm not trying to sound like an old man yelling at a cloud. We still get plenty of pretty good blockbusters, but there's a reason that recently things like Top Gun Maverick, Avatar, The Way of Water, and Dune feel like something special, and that's because there's something special about the way those movies were made as opposed to something like, say, a recent Marvel movie, a Thor Love and Thunder, for example, not to name names. So here comes Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, the seventh movie in the franchise and the third by Christopher McQuarrie, and yeah, it fucking rips. I wasn't always a fan of the Mission movies. I got into them around last year and realized that pretty much every movie is a slapper, and that unlike some other franchises, they only seem to get better with every entry. What I like is that Ethan Hunt is the ultimate good guy, the living manifestation of destiny. There's nothing he hates more than seeing people die. Ethan's a lover of humanity, a fighter for good, and all-around sick dude. That's the kind of aggressive optimism that's missing in a lot of protagonists as of late. Ethan is almost always a source of unrelenting good, and he's fighting a source of unrelenting bad. If I have one criticism of past Mission movies, it's that the villains can sometimes feel like an afterthought. The only one I truly love is Philip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3. Henry Cavill's a close second, but this movie manages to fix that problem, not because the actual antagonist is anything stunning, but by making the real antagonist basically evil incarnate. That really led to a lot of tense moments for me, where the odds feel insurmountable and different. He wasn't just up against a guy, but a force of change, and negative change at that. The sense of tension in the whole movie is just unreal. There's a scene with Simon Pegg's character where I was sitting fully upright in my seat, and I can't think of any other movies that have made me do that recently, so I just really appreciated that I was able to be so physically invested. And it goes without saying that the stunts here are on another level from what anybody else in the game is doing. There's a lot of talk about the cliff jump, which is, of course, excellent, as everyone knew it would be, but there's also a fight in a super narrow hallway and a car chase through Rome that are just top-notch stuff. I appreciate that the approach to the stunts in all the Mission movies has always been, you know what would be cool? And then just doing the cool thing and finding a way to get the story there as organically as they possibly can, and it almost always does feel organic. Chris McQuarrie and Tom Cruise come up with a premise that's as simple as a car chase, but the characters are handcuffed. And unlike some movies where you might have one or two jokes about that, they go the full way with it and constantly remind the audience that these two are handcuffed together, actually. So everything that seems simple about a car chase is not simple in execution. And I appreciate that they fully dedicate the entire storyboarding and scripting of the sequence to the one simple fact, or the one twist to the stunt. Everyone here is at the top of their game too. Ving Rhames actually gets a pretty good sequence where he gets to talk to Ethan. And it's nice seeing that because Luther's the only character besides Ethan who's been around since the first movie. Simon Pegg is a gem as always, and admittedly Rebecca Ferguson wasn't in it as much as I wanted her to be, but she still manages to be one of the best series regular characters that they added. But I think the best performance in the whole movie, aside from Tom Cruise, is Haley Atwell, which I wasn't really expecting. They do some new stuff with her character that they haven't done in previous Mission Impossible movies. Fucking tooth whistle. She had great chemistry with the rest of the cast and was really funny. And the whole movie might just be the funniest Mission Impossible movie yet. And for longtime fans of the series, there's a lot of admiration for the first movie, which admittedly isn't my favorite, but it's still cool to see. Bringing Kittredge back and the way certain scenes are shot and edited is a lot more reminiscent of the early Mission movies than it is of the later movies past Ghost Protocol. It's really nice how the series has grown and changed so much, and rather than trying to just show this character from the first movie and show you this character from the second movie over and over for the sake of nostalgia, they kind of they do nostalgic things, but it's almost always in the way that the filmmaking is done that reminds you of the early movies, but isn't in your face being like, remember this, remember this. As much as it calls back to earlier movies, it kind of confronts ideas that were raised in that first movie and those early movies. Dead Reckoning has a whole sequence dedicated to like what the your mission, should you choose to accept it, phrase means, and what it's meant for the characters in the past. And I think that was handled very well. I also really appreciated how the movie tackled its discussion around AI. It's pretty clear that Cruise and McQuarrie both just straight up hate AI. And as someone who also hates AI and had to watch Marvel do an AI credit sequence a couple weeks ago in the most tone-deaf way possible, I really appreciated that. To touch on the few things that I didn't like, the movie's just a bit bloated and isn't as tightly paced and edited as Fallout was. There's some expository bits that drag on for a pretty long time and honestly don't end up clearing things up maybe as much as they had hoped they would, and I was kind of left those sequences more confused as before they tried providing an explanation. And on the more nitpicky side of things, there isn't really a hand-to-hand fight that was as good or even close to the ones in Fallout. That being said, Tom Cruise just knows what the people want. This is a movie that fully demands your attention and demands being seen on the biggest screen that you possibly can. I fully believe Tom Cruise would die for the movie theaters to stay open. To his credit, the movie would not be the same watching it at home for the first time. I think it really deserves the huge screen, the great sound, and your undivided attention. It's not something that you can constantly pause and go back to. It really is something that's meant to be an event. Overall, I absolutely love this movie. It ranks probably about here in my Mission Impossible ranking. The only reason it's below Fallout is because I feel like Fallout is the better movie on its own, but with a part 2, this movie could easily crawl up to being my favorite. I think if you're on the fence about watching it, if you like Mission Impossible or you like good action movies, I don't see why you wouldn't go see it. It's worth your time. The whole series is, to be honest, maybe except 2, although I know there are people who also love 2. I don't. I think it's a bad movie. This movie just kind of gave me everything I was looking for. It re-inspired me to make a video, which I haven't done in 3 years. And when I was watching it, I was just like, yeah, this is like everything I want from an action movie, from a blockbuster, from a movie in general. Because it's not just, I could talk a lot about the action. I could talk a lot about all that kind of stuff. But what it really is like, I care a lot about Ethan and Luther and Benji and all the characters. If you watched this whole video and watched me yell at a cloud for a couple minutes, thank you, and I hope you agree with some parts of the review, and if not, you're probably wrong. Bye.